Hello everyone, I appreciate you coming back for part 2 of making a 12-inch glide bait. If you haven't checked out part 1 yet, I highly recommend you do so. I'll go ahead and put a link in the description below. Just a quick recap, in part 1 I sketched out a design, transferred it to wood, and carved out the rough shape. I then carved the gills, fins, and was in the process of attaching the fins. We ran into a little bit of a snag on dorsal fin placement, but I got that worked out. Anyway, thanks for coming back, and I hope you enjoy part 2. These two pelvic fins, what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want them to be identical, so I'm going to need to secure those together. What I've done is I've sanded it to where I have this same common point, the same common side. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put just a little bitty dot of hot glue to secure them temporarily. I'll let that cool for just a second, and then I should be able to shape them together. All right, now theoretically, these should just break apart. Sweet. Now we'll round all these edges like we did on the other fin. Once I've got them all rounded, then we'll put in the detailing. All right, we're gonna try the little pin fiasco again. I can't really get my pin to go straight up and down. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna angle it forward like that. I don't think we're even in the same zip code. That's okay. I'll just over drill it, epoxy it, and I guess tape them into place. Not really sure. Attack the front and the back with super glue and accelerator just to hold them exactly where they need to be while the epoxy cures. Yeah, that's my game plan. I'm sure that there's a really nifty way to do this and have these be perfectly aligned and all that stuff. I just don't know what it is. So, not without having some sort of elaborate jig. There might be a simple way out there that I just don't know about. Trick to this is this is going to have to be perfectly symmetrical. These fins are going to have to be really, really straight, because if they're not, this bait's going to want to tend to drift one way or the other. And what I want it to do is I want it to drift both ways equally. Right? It needs to go one way, and then it needs to go the other way, right? And if the fins are all crooked, it'll tend to want to drift the same way every time, and then it's just going to be going in a big circle. So we're going to do our dead level best to get these straight, and that's why I think a lot of lure makers don't put the fins on them, because it's an extra thing to get in the way. Something else to interfere with the action. It's a difficult bait to make already, and then when you add fins onto it, it just makes it that much more difficult. But I want it to look like a complete and total fish when I'm done with it. So I'm going to put in the time, and I'm going to get it right. All right, so I'm going to have to apologize right now. I accidentally took a photograph of this instead of having it in video mode, so you missed all of the nail biting action. But I'll kind of walk you through what I did. I mixed up some epoxy, and I put it in the large holes just like I did the dorsal fin. And I got this fin aligned, and then I tacked it with some super glue and some accelerator on the front. And then I did the same thing for these two. I've got them super glued with epoxy in there, so the super glue is kind of on the outside just to hold it in place until the epoxy can cure. So the seam where we glued the two blocks of wood together is our center line, and it is as straight as you can get. And I've got this square back here aligned with that seam, so I know that the fish is up and down. Okay, and then I've got this guy, which when I bring it up to that seam, you can see my fin is perfectly straight up and down, and it's aligned with the tail fin. So I think I'm at that point where I'm just going to have to be happy with it. We're going to let it sit overnight, and then in the morning we'll be able to handle it and check it and all that stuff. So that's all I can do for tonight, and we'll check on it in the morning. All right, it's the next day, and I wanted to come out here and show you what we've got. All right. Need to finish that and then seal it. Show you how that turned out. Very nice, I think. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to work on each fin and seal as I go. All right, after a little bit of detail sanding and filling, I wanted to show you what we wound up with here. Next, I do need to do an awful lot of sanding over this seal coat that I've done. I'm gonna have to sand the entire thing with a fine grit sandpaper. I'm probably gonna do 180 grit. And then once I'm done with that, it should be time to finalize this cut and start putting hardware and weight in. There it is. Boom. Nice. Now we need to make the hardware for this particular lure, and I have upgraded to a 0.062 inch diameter. This is just stainless steel aircraft lock wire, safety wire. Let's cut about a 7-inch piece and see how that does. I think I'm gonna have to get a new nail. That one's not doing so good. I don't want to get too big of a nail because I want to keep these eyes as small as possible. See if we can get in there. That's a good size eye. I don't want to make it any bigger. Okay, now to make the joint, I'm going to feed my next piece of wire through that loop. Okay, and I'm going to lay this piece that I've already got over here. Okay, now they're locked together. I'm going to trim them to be 2 inches from the base of the eye, so there to there is 2 inches. One of the ways I keep consistency as I trim these, because oftentimes I'll do several of them. In this case, I'm doing 2, 4, 5, 7 of them, so I want them all to be exactly the same length. The way that I do that is I use my trusty blocks again, and I stack them so that the plier, the cutter portion of the plier is right where I need it to be. The front hook hanger, go right about there. The rear hook hanger, it's going to have to go, we're going to have to move it because of the fin. Then the front one, let's just put it right there in the center. Let's go 0.7 from the top and the bottom. Uh-oh. Ah, man, it's going to intersect with that one. So, I think we're going to have to bend this over to one side just so I miss it. But the other one, no, it's still going to hit it. So let's bend it the other way. Roll with the punches. Yeah, that'll work. Now, is this one in danger of hitting? Well, shoot, yeah. Of course it is. By just a little bit. Alright, so here's what we're going to do. The bottom one goes to the fish's left. So the bottom one. Hold on. I don't know that this makes any difference whatsoever. But I'm going to make it go to the fish's left too. That right there. That right there. Yeah, that's nice and snug. Perfect. I like it. All right, because I don't want to glue these hinges in yet until I'm completely done painting and all that stuff. I'm going to leave those as sort of a compression type fitting so that it can be removed, which means for my weighting and balancing and all that stuff, I need to seal those so that water doesn't get in there and get inside the lure. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put some down in there and let it soak real good. And then what I'll do is I'll re-drill just a little bit just to make sure that my hole is still a good size, but it should be nice and waterproof then. Same thing on this side. It'll be a little bit harder because of this wedge shape I've got going on here. Ah! See, that's what I don't want. I don't want it running all over the bait. So, let me cut a piece of this wire. I'm going to put my wire down in there. And then I'm going to try and get the glue to run down the wire. Yeah, that's working. Okay, let's start from the front and work our way to the back. Because why not? I think I'm going to, in fact, I know I'm going to. I'm going to foil this. I'm going to foil this lure too. I just really think that gives it some depth. Even though a rainbow trout's not particularly shiny as fish go, there's a little bit of a shine there. I think I can give the finish a little bit of depth by doing that. We're about to move into weight and balance of the lure, and I really like to take my time on this step because it's a critical part of making a good glide bait. Anytime I'm working with a new lure design that I haven't made before, I like to temporarily weight the lure. That gives me a better idea of how much weight it needs and where it should be. If you've watched my 7-inch minnow video, that's exactly what I did on that one. So to do this, what I need to do is make a variety of weights and sizes. And so far I've made these 3/8 inch weights. But with this lure, I'm going to be able to get a much bigger Forstner bit in there. And I'm going to need bigger weight. So I'm going to make a variety of 1/2 inchers. And then I might even make a few 5/8. So what I've got is just a scrap block of wood, and I've done the 3/8. I've drilled some holes in it, and then I fill them with the lead and dump them out. All right, I got those holes drilled, and because I'm super brilliant, I drilled 2 in kind of the same place there. Oh, there's another one there, a little one. Yeah, well, we'll make it work. That ain't gonna work. Yeah. What do y'all think? As I've said before, I'm constantly upgrading things here on the channel. I'm dedicated to bringing you good content, so I have got a legit balancing tank, which will fit this 12-inch bait. Let's go swimming. So as you can see, I've got the hinge joints dry fit so I can still remove them. I've got hooks and rings already attached. So this is as close to the final assembly as I can get. Now what we're going to do is we're just going to hot glue some of these weights onto the bottom and try and figure out exactly where all of that needs to be to get this to balance properly. By the way, these are 5/0 hooks that I'm using. So I'll start with some of these bigger ones. One right there. It's a lot of wood. I think it's going to need a lot of weight. I like this method because especially going in with no idea how much weight I'm going to need, at least this way, no, that's going to be too big. At least this way I can kind of get in the ballpark, you know. Without doing any kind of permanent damage to the lure. Yeah, that's probably enough there. Let's put some on the tail. This is going to be tricky right here with this fin. I may have to drill. I don't know. I may have to get creative with that. Let's just do the best we can for now, and then we'll ramp it up as much as we need to. Here we go. Got all these stringies over here. There we go. Tell you what, let's just stack them to simulate drilling deeper. Okay, after adding and removing many times, I think I've found the right answer. So I was getting too many holes along the bottom, so what I did is I consolidated them into deeper holes, and I've rebalanced it. I'll show you what I got. something you should know is that sometimes when you're filling your holes with lead, it can catch on fire. So you need to be ready to blow that out. When you're messing with lead, you need to keep safety first in mind. All right, I let the lead cool and I put my hooks back on. I'm gonna lay it sideways to let all the air out so that it's not trapped under there. Okay. Looks like we need a touch more weight. It's incredibly important that this be dry, because if any of that hot lead hits this water, bad things will happen. It's very dangerous. So I'm gonna dry it off with the towel, and then I'm gonna let it sit here and dry some more, because I really don't want to mess with any water in that lead. So look at this. There's little bubbles on it. We're down to the bubbles making all the difference. Like I said, by the time I get the super glue and the baking soda on there and fill all those holes, it will be a slow sinker. That's pretty much a suspending bait right now. Look at that. Incidentally, I did wash this whole lure off after I sanded because I don't want any dust on there, so I washed it and let it dry. I don't consider trout to be especially shiny, but they are a fish and there is some level of sheen to them, so we may mask a lot of that. I don't want it to be like a, you know, a lot of your saltwater fish, like a tarpon or something, is like a swimming mirror. I don't think we need to do that, but yeah. Okay, try and align this carefully. Incidentally, if y'all want a little bit more detail on how I do this, check out my last video I did on a lipless crankbait. I go pretty detailed on that one as far as what tape I'm using, all that. I don't really want to go into just uber detail on every video because I feel like it gets redundant for those of you who have been watching all of them. So I don't want to, you know, sound like a broken record. Trying to keep it fresh for you. All right, now let's get that. Let's find that detail in there. See these? Every once in a while I get these little ridges. If you start at the bottom and work towards the top, I find that it minimizes that. There's still going to be a crease there, but I feel like it's a little bit less. Here, these embossing tools, as I said in my other video, to just start tracing in that detail. Okay, that's what we got. Good morning, everybody. At least it's morning for me. I'm gonna start painting the fins. I'm having to run a heater in the shop. It's a little bit chilly this morning, so if you hear that in the background, that's what that is. I'm gonna start out with opaque white and just get a good coat on these fins so that I can start painting them. And the reason I'm painting these fins first is I've got all this carving detail in there, and typically what I do is I'll clear coat the whole thing so that that seam gets covered up on the foil. If I were to do that, then I lose that detail on the fins. So if I go ahead and paint those, then the clear coat can go over them, and I'm fine with that because that detail will be in there. It'll be locked in. So that's why we're doing that. See, I already think that looks like something. You just have to put a little bit of paint on it and it starts coming together. I'm gonna start with a pearl satin gold. All right, so on the dorsal and tail fin, we're gonna go with the Wicked Detail Moss Green. I'm gonna put a little coat of iridescent yellow over that. All right, something I want to do on all the fins is I'm going to sort of feather it out with a pearl white towards the ends. For our pink stripe, we're going to be using iridescent red. Okay, we're about to go to clear coat with this. Just wanted to kind of show you where it's at now. Keep in mind these are all foundational colors. We're going to go over that quite a bit more, so that's just a kind of a base coat. I let this cure overnight, and what we've got is clear coat over our seams here, over the entire thing. And you can kind of see, let me shine a light over it. What it does is it hides that seam of the foil, and that's the whole point of doing that clear coat at that stage. I'm going to go over those seams with an opaque white. I just want to get a primer on that, and then we can start putting color over it. Next, pearl white on the belly. I am going to put on detail moss green along the back. Okay, I've decided to go ahead and put the eyes on before I do the clear coat. I use these eyes from Brule Outdoors. I don't know if I'm saying that right. but I'm using the Harvest, and these are the 1/2 inch size. I like them. They're really good eyes. They're transparent. If you want it exactly like this, then you do need to paint that white background in there. Okay. I'm going to go back to this pearlized satin gold. If you recall, we had that. Let me get this other piece. We have that in our fin work, and I think, you know, if I put that along the back, what that's going to do is tie that together a little bit, but it'll also kind of bring down the darkness of this green. All right, now it's time to put the spots on there, and I'm going to use opaque black for that. Gently drill those out again just to make sure they're clear. That one doesn't want to go in. There we go. Kind of curious to find out what this thing weighs. Zero it out, put it on ounces. Okay, let's see if I can even get it to fit. $14 3/4 ounces. Wow. Some people fish for trout. I fish with trout. Fortunately, they figured out how to let us go fishing in the area that I'm at, so I'm happy to report that I have some footage to show you. As you can see, this lure has a great gliding action. It was a lot of fun to make, and I really like this style of bait. I'm already thinking I want to make a smaller one that my rod can handle, maybe a 7 or 8 inch. It might make more sense for it to be a bass because they don't really stock rainbows here. If you want more content, you can check out my other videos or follow me on Instagram. I'll put a link in the description below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.